Unlike pretty much every other place in Europe and in Scandinavia, the nation of Sweden didn't shut down its schools. It didn't close its businesses to prevent the spread of COVID-19. Instead, the government told people to stay socially distant in some reasonable way and to wear masks. Result? Sweden's death rate has dropped to near zero, even as cases surge elsewhere in Europe. And that raises the very obvious question: did the lockdowns hurt more than they helped? Alex Berenson specializes in thinking through tough questions like that. He's the author of Unreported Truths About COVID-19 and Lockdowns Part 2. He joins us tonight. Alex, thanks a lot for coming on. So very simple question. Do you think, based on the fact pattern we just outlined briefly, that lockdowns hurt the rest of Europe?
Yes. Sweden's averaging about one death a day for the last couple of weeks. They have 10 million people. Cases have not spiked. Meanwhile, in the countries that locked down hard and early, like Spain, and notably Spain and France especially, those countries now are averaging several thousand to, in some cases, more than 10,000 new positive tests a day, and deaths are starting to rise too. Spain actually had 12,000 positive tests, I believe it was last Friday, which is a per capita rate higher than the U.S. ever had during our worst day. And by the way, Spain, France, and Italy, but especially Spain, had terrible economic contractions in the first half of the year. Sweden's was much less severe. So Sweden got through this, it seems. Now, of course, we're going to have to look what happens in the fall. But right now, things look very good in Sweden and at much less economic cost. And if you look over the last 6 months total, their sort of overall per capita death rate in Sweden is very similar. It's very much the same as France, Spain, the UK, or Italy. So it's hard to see what Sweden didn't gain from following its policy.
Interesting. So we're trying to be as honest as we can. There are lots of variables between countries, obviously. Are there any big variables between Sweden and, say, Spain that might account for the different death rates?
Well, actually, fewer than you'd think. Sweden has a substantial elderly population. They do have a lot of nursing homes, as Spain does. Sweden actually, the one thing people will say about Sweden on sort of the left who want to attack Sweden is they'll say, well, the other Nordic countries had lower death rates. And that's true. But Sweden is actually, it's bigger than those other countries. And it also has a somewhat different, overall demographic. It has more immigrants, and it has more nursing homes than those other countries. And there are some questions about the way the Swedes treated people in their nursing homes early on, to be honest with you. So there are these other factors. I mean, one thing I was talking to somebody else about this earlier today, and it might be a good idea to get Anders Tegnell, who's the Swedish, really the epidemiologist in Sweden who's in charge of their response, and who, by the way, does what he thinks is best without politics. He's the one who set this policy. Maybe it would be a great idea to have Scott Atlas bring him over and talk to the coronavirus task force and talk to Donald Trump, because, we've heard a lot of American epidemiologists and of course, famously Neil Ferguson make these cases about how lockdowns are the only way to go. Maybe we should hear from somebody on the other side.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's interested in hearing more evidence. And I have to say, I just have to pause and smile at the idea the left is attacking Sweden. I mean, if you're over 40, you remember when Sweden was held up as the model for everything. Alex Berenson, a man who's used to irony. Great to see you tonight. Thank you.
Thanks, Tucker.